And we're on. Hey, this is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy, and we're kicking it live here at allpointstv.com. I got John behind the camera making it happen here. Definitely appreciate it, John. How you doing today?
Very good, really good.
All right, all right. We're going to be talking about medical marijuana. Going to let you know what's happening down at the Compassion Club and get you guys up to date. We've had some interesting news happen last couple weeks. I didn't make it in last week. I hope that all of you made it out to vote. The elections are over and we're on to new things now, thank heaven. But hey, we got some announcements coming up. I want to share with you guys what's been happening at the club, what we got coming up. Let's get going this Friday. Man, I'm looking forward to Friday. I hope you guys are too. We are having good friends of mine come out. The name is Got Smoke Barbecue. These guys cook up some phenomenal food, and they're going to be at the club from 2 to 7 p.m. on Friday. So bring your appetites, all right? We're going to be, they'll be outside in the fenced-in area, so you can get your food, take some home, whatever you want to order. They'll have a pretty good menu for you guys, and they're from the Owasso, Ovid area, so kind of bringing some flavor to our club, and I am super excited. Along with that, also, we have our three-legged man race. I saw a few couples signed up for this. There's a couple sign-up sheets. I've noticed them at the bars. So if you're at the club and you're listening and you want to do a three-legged man race, this is your chance. All right, we're going to do it on Friday. It's going to be in the club. There's going to be prizes. It's going to be laughter. And hopefully there won't be any accidents. All right, I'm holding Brian accountable if there are. Okay, so, but no, please come on out Friday. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have some good times and some great food, good company. And I'd definitely like to see you guys out there. So come on out to the club, all right, on Friday. Other things that we've got going on here coming up here shortly is our awesome golf event. It is Roar. I got the flyers here. It's our 4th annual one. It's pretty spectacular. And this is from Hurley Pediatric Center. It's the Reach Out and Read program. That's what Roar stands for. I have to remind myself of that all the time, all these acronyms. But this is an awesome thing. We're doing a golf event. It's out at the Copper Ridge Golf Course in Burton, and it's a fabulous course. We're playing 18 holes. There's a steak dinner afterwards, of course, cart included, and you can get your teams together. There's still time. So sign up, talk to George if you want to. And this is going to happen August 27th, and we're kicking off the teeing off, I believe at 10 a.m. Maybe that's 9 a.m. I'm looking on here and I don't see the time. Damn it!
Okay, so I made a video.
All right, well, if you want to sign up, it's going to be about 9 or 10 o'clock. I don't think it's any earlier than that. So be there 8:30. All right, get ready. Anyways, the 27th, August 27th, awesome event. Copper Ridge Golf Club, Reach Out and Read Charity is who we're sponsoring. Also, throw a shout out to Fenton Hydroponics Garden Center, Herbs from the Burbs, and of course G3C for helping to support and put this event on. I know we have a few other sponsors as well. I'd like to thank them all, and really like to see you guys out there. So help put this program on, man. This is a great program. It helps kids get read to when they're in a traumatic situation. It doesn't just put a book in their lap. It actually is somebody sitting there reading, spending time with them, comforting them, getting their mind off of whatever it is of the reason why they're there at the doggone hospital. So if you can imagine, if you had a traumatized child sitting there, they don't have a loved one there to comfort them. Maybe the loved one's the one that's there at the hospital. It's not always the kid that's sick, but this is an amazing program, and it's something that we wholeheartedly sponsor, glad to be a part of, and Hurley allows us to do so. So we appreciate their support as well. But at any rate, 27th. Talk to George if you want to sign up to play golf. You can make a donation and designate it directly to Roar. We'll make sure that they get it. All, of course, the funds from this that are raised go to support Roar. So, and did I mention you get a steak dinner? Dude, their steaks are freaking delicious. Unbelievable. I've been to Black Rock, and Black Rock's not as good. All right, maybe if you order the Kobe, you know what I'm talking about, Matt. Maybe that's better, but the regular run-of-the-mill steak, you can't beat it. Copper Ridge is freaking awesome, and we're gonna have a good time. I'm not a golfer myself, so there's no excuses, okay? Come on out, hit a bucket of range balls like I will. Have a good time, all right? What else we got going on here? We have, I think that's about it for events at the club. I know we've got some other events coming up here around the state. And of course, we always had our summer festivities going on. We got Back to the Bricks coming up. It's a big thing here in Flint, and I know that a lot of us are excited about that. That'll be cool. Man, summer's wrapping up. We're going to be going back to school soon. We've already started to get the fog at night and the dew on the ground in the morning, so enjoy your summer. You've only got a couple weeks left, and it's going to be gone. That's definitely, I would encourage you to do that, okay? Whatever you said you wanted to do this summer, you need to go do it now, all right? Or you're not going to do it. That's just the facts. Okay, got some medical marijuana stuff I want to share with you guys, let you know what's been happening. We have had quite a few different developments occur here in the state of Michigan in regards to marijuana. So I want to talk with you about those, and we can have a little bit of a discussion. So as always, feel free to call into the podcast. Love to answer questions. The number here is 810-250-7365. All right, and call right into All Points TV. John will screen you, make sure that you're not crazy and you're not a robot. Right.
Are you sure you don't want the not crazy part? Because that takes a long time to ascertain.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So just reasonably sound
Tricky
normal, somewhat normal.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll take most calls. Most. All right. All right. This is the bulletin's information, stuff I want to get out. A lot of this having to do with the Michigan's LARA, Licensing and Regulations Department there. And they seem to be busy at work, although maybe busy on the right things I'm not too sure about. But at any rate, one of the big things that they issued out this last week was a bulletin letting facilities know, places that are looking to get processing licenses, letting them know that there's no currently legally approved way to do THCA extraction. So that was basically the bulletin. Okay, and they said basically you can't do this unless there's a way that we can develop an extraction method that's not so dangerous, but currently, using current methods that we're aware of, we will not be approving this process. Therefore, the substance is not legal, and this is through the MMFLA program. So, first of all, I want to clarify this bulletin. The first thing is that it is a MMFLA bulletin. This is specifically geared to and governing over processing facilities that want to be processing facilities licensed in the MMFLA program. Okay, so that's who this affects. Patients and caregivers, this does not prohibit you from having this substance nor procuring it. Okay, two different programs, and it's important that we continue to talk about the fact that these are in fact two different programs. We have the original one that was approved in 2008 by Michigan voters themselves, and it was passed specifically creating patients and caregivers in Michigan. Then we have the second program, which was passed by our legislature, creating a Facilities Licensing Act, which is in fact what it did. So places that are looking to get a license for processing, you want to be a processing facility. Currently, you're not going to be able to procure or create THCA crystalline, which is a very specific substance. So I want to talk a little bit about that because some folks are like, well, what the heck is that? And it's a good question because it's not something that you're going to run into on average if you're in a dispensary. It's probably not something your average caregiver is going to be possessing. So what is THCA? Let's talk a little bit about that. THCA, first of all, before we get into describing it, what it is a specific cannabinoid. It is just one. So if you remember, cannabis contains a lot of different cannabinoids. Some say that there's well over, I think over 70 identified already. We've talked about ones like CBD on the show. You guys are aware of stuff like THC. And THCA is actually THC acid before it's been decarboxylated. Now, I'm not going to try to get too far into the science here. I'm not a chemist. But basically, it is the THC before it's been decarboxylated, and it is a very select portion of the cannabinoids that are present in the plant. I'm going to get into a little bit of an article here. This is from Royal Queen Seeds. You can check this out for yourself. And they have a specific team that they built to extract and create THCA. So let me read some of this for you, if I can. All right, very simply stating, when processed, pure THCA crystallizes. Its visual similarities to drugs like cocaine make a lot of people question it. But the true breakthrough, the exact extract, they're saying is beyond the recreational market. THCA, when decarboxylated, loses its acidic atom, leaving behind pure THC, which in fact, for clarity, that's what most people are after. They are not after the THCA itself. They want it after it's been decarboxylated. And for most of you, your decarboxylation would occur through either pressure or heat, which is what the majority of us use to decarboxylate things anyways. So at any rate, where you may see it present would be in what we consider jellies, or maybe terp. I think, John, what was the term that we were looking at? Terp
sauce, wasn't it?
Sauce,
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Where they have had THCA, they have decarboxylated it, and then they have re-injected terps to give it some flavor. And this is one of the other downsides of THCA crystalline anyways, is that because it is so isolated, it has had all of the terpenes removed, therefore it doesn't have much of a taste. Also, THCA in its acidic form is not psychoactive, so it's not going to get you high. And I don't really think that that was the concern behind Lara's bulletin when they said, hey, you cannot produce this material. What their concern was is that in order to produce THCA, you have to use certain chemicals like hexane and methane, which are both incredibly flammable in and of itself, and obviously require a tremendous amount of care when being used. And in fact, in their bulletin, they even state that having an exhaust hood, a professionally, chemically, a real deal exhaust hood that would be used in a lab is not sufficient for the extraction method that is required to create this THCA material. So they did state in the bulletin, and this is not for sure, but it sort of said, look, we'll review other extraction methods if and when they become known and are available. But under current processes known, we're not going to allow this. So really, does this affect us very much? No, it doesn't, because most of us are not dealing with pure THCA. Most of us have access as patients and caregivers to a myriad of different concentrates, excuse me, like terp sauce, which may or may not be originally derived from THCA. Excuse me. Man, you'd think I just had some concentrate. But, things like Booter, Shatter, these other types of concentrates that are now more well-known, they typically are not coming from a THCA source. And this is more of a rarity type of a thing. So similar to like when Lara issued out a bulletin about a month ago warning everybody about, the hepatitis A scare and how that might affect your medical marijuana. It's sort of like a 1 in a million chance. Not that THCA is a 1 in a million chance that you're going to run across it, but it's certainly going to be less hard to find. And now it appears that won't change since these processing facilities will not have the ability to create it unless they can find another way. So at any rate, I do want to talk about another aspect of this because it does bring up another question, and we have had some questions from our viewers about hash oil extraction. So what I'm referring to when we're talking about hash oil extraction, I'm referring to the specifics of butane hash oil extraction. And there was a law that was passed about a year ago, which does get into talking about and making the process of butane extraction illegal in some cases. And this does affect patients and caregivers. If you go into the bulletin of the law that was issued, and let me see if I can actually find it here while we're on the program. But the specifics of it rule out the ability to extract using butane anywhere where you're in the curtilage of a person's home. And that would include like areas like the garage or near the outside of the home, like the shed, things like this. Obviously areas inside of the home as well. So basically the law came out and it said, look, you cannot have any type of butane extraction going on in the vicinity of a residential area, in the curtilage of a residential home. It doesn't rule out the fact that you could do it outside of the curtilage of a residential area, or that maybe it could be done in a commercial setting. Certainly, the processing facilities that will be looking to come online here in the future with the MMFLA program will be doing butane extraction in a professional setting. So it doesn't eliminate the product. It doesn't eliminate the process, kind of like the THC bulletin does eliminate that product. It says you can't have it. Butane is not that way. So I think it's important that patients and caregivers understand what the laws are, and that's why I'm sharing the information here on the program. Butane extraction is not illegal. You just can't be doing it in and around your home or around somebody else's home for that matter, for obvious reasons. We have seen them exploit stories around the state when people have had accidents and caused fires or gas explosions. These are incredibly unfortunate events. And accidents happen. It's not because they were stoners and they fit the stigma of, the stoner genre. It's because accidents happen. And oftentimes people are doing dumb stuff. It has nothing to do, again, with being a cannabis consumer. It's just people do dumb stuff, and they shouldn't be doing that. So if you are working with dangerous chemicals, as always, you need to take precaution. I mean, it's the same as filling up your lawnmower with a gas can. You make sure you don't have a cigarette hanging out of your mouth. Common sense stuff. But it's good to not get confused, because when we talk about these different rules that the LARA is putting out, and they start to get technical, we need to know who they apply to, when they apply, how they apply, and it's difficult to get that type of information from the state. It's not like they're sitting there, delineating their information and breaking it down to us on layman's levels. They just sort of spit it out there and expect everybody to just follow suit immediately, blindly, and it is unfortunate. So we try to provide some clarity here on the program for you guys, and as well as for patients. I mean, when you patients are out there and you're looking at different products, it can be difficult to identify, what is this, what is that, and how should this be used. And that's where our caregivers come in at. I mean, it's important as a caregiver that you understand these laws, that you follow them, that you're compliant, and that you're also providing a product to your patient that they understand as well, so that they can use it effectively. All right, other information in the news, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Let me try to pull this up for you. Let's see here. Keep pulling up the wrong stories. I swear my internet is like scrambled or something like that. But anyways, timeline announcement. This is what I wanted to talk about. This is in regards to the recent LARA MMFLA licensing board. They went through some more applications. They approved a few more places. This was last week. And by a few more places, I mean a few more. I think there was just a handful of applicants that were approved this last week. Nothing really that would even sort of make a dent into the exhaustive line of businesses that are trying to get through the application process right now with the state. So let me delve into this a little bit. Basically, the director of LARA, Andrew Brisboe, came out after the meeting and stated, look, September 15th is still the deadline. So any of these places that are in the process of getting an application, they will have to shut down by September 15th in order to have a chance at getting their application. If you stay open past the 15th, you're not going to be getting your application, because now you're in violation of this deadline. So really sort of creating their own deadline. They've already extended it twice, and they're really sort of making a mockery of their own process, in my opinion. So here we have with the state, and I'm going to try to pull this up again, but it is reported in the press over 600 applicants in total into Michigan's LARA MMFLA licensing process. So that's a lot of applications, over 600. And the number continues to grow. So here we have this tremendous amount of interest in these businesses getting their license. In the meantime, the state has literally gone through less than 30 applications since the inception of their board. And here we are literally a month away from the September 15th deadline. 2 weeks ago, LARA just completed the entire chain link process by approving the first testing facilities allowed in the state, PSI Labs and Iron Laboratories. So we now have a complete chain, and actually the product and process can be achieved now that there is a full complete chain. And what I mean is, obviously you have to have all 5 licenses operational in order to have the product get from the original inception of it being grown to the countertop where the patient is going to be purchasing it. So you have to have all of those licenses working in conjunction in order to do this. The state just completed the first testing license 2 weeks ago, allowing that process to be complete. So here we are, and if you recall me reporting this on the program just about 2 months ago, the first grow facility was licensed. And in fact, it wasn't 2 months ago, it was more like about 45 days ago, John, I think if you recall, here on the podcast. So if you know anything about growing cannabis, you would understand that your product would not be ready by September 15th if you had just planted your seeds in the ground 45 days ago. And that is what we're dealing with here. So the state, Andrew Brisboe, who represents our state at this point and then represents this process, has come out and said, look, we're not going to extend the deadline. September 15th is it. If you are in the application process, you need to plan on closing your business by that date if you want to remain in the application process. So that is a serious blow to all of the current business owners that are currently operating. And it is also mind-blowing. I mean, how on earth could the state do that? Take away the access that the patients need to have, take away these businesses, these jobs that are out there, just force them to close, and then say, well, you'll get to reopen when we get to your application if you are approved. One of the main reasons that the state mentioned, Andrew mentioned, for doing this is so that the state police can have a clear separation between businesses that are licensed and not licensed. And I think we're missing the point. The point of this program is to provide medicine to patients, not worry about schematics and regulations and things like this. We're missing the punch here, and we're doing it at the expense of our patients. So this is really sort of a conundrum. In response to that conundrum, a group of representatives from Michigan, I think a group of 7 or 8 different representatives from our legislature got together, addressed this issue. I'm going to see if I can pull this up for you as well. They got together and they basically submitted a request to LARA to extend this deadline. And they cited some of the facts there as to why the deadline should be extended. And it's pretty well thought out and put together. So, LARA. Bear with me. Come on. And of course, now I can't find the story. Isn't that the way it goes? Oh, goodness. I'll keep searching for that if I can. I'd like to share some of the facts that they listed in there, but I thought it was good that at least some of our representatives have recognized the issue here of what's going on, you know, from the entrepreneurial spirit being quashed on this to patients not having access to their medication. They recognize that, and we'll see if anything comes of it. They made a request to the governor and also to Michigan LARA, which would both really be responsible for this artificial deadline that they have imposed. Pretty amazing. I'm going to keep looking for that, and in the interest of time and your interest as well, I'm going to move on. If I find that actual letter, I'll pull that up and read that to you. But I'm sure you can search for it online. It was just submitted again by our state legislatures, specifically state representatives, and you can check that out for yourself. Okay. I want to move on though and talk about another thing in dealing with the MMFLA, and that is the licensing as well, but also specifically some of these operational centers that we're seeing now spring up. We have had in Bay City, Chesaning, Lansing, Marshall, among other areas around the state, and quite frankly, it's actually getting too large to list here, of large facilities being proposed in these areas many jobs being touted as being available in the future, and all surrounding themselves around the medical marijuana industry. And first of all, every one of those businesses that is even considering doing this at this level scale is simply pulling the wool over the public's eyes and stating how this is supposed to be for a medical purpose. In reality, it is 100% being built for the recreational market. So I find that a little bit disingenuous on the parts of these organizations. And to give you an example, one of the more recent ones I've seen here was in the town of Marshall. And this one here sort of really kind of gets my goat in a sense because of the fact that Marshall itself popped up. I mean, we even talked about it here in the podcast a couple different times. Marshall was one of the very antagonistic areas towards patients and caregivers for the first 8-9 years of this law. Not a safe place for them to use their medicine, not a safe place for them to procure it, to get it. We had seen numerous issues there over and over and over again. And now the city of Marshall is jumping on the bandwagon, can't wait to get in on the punch. And the latest investment company that's coming in from out of state is saying they're going to build a $30 million facility in this town, and we'll soon have, within the near future, 400 jobs being offered to the market. So, it sounds great. They're all excited about it. They're making their big announcement. And I guess to people that have been in this business for as long as we have here at the club, it's sort of disheartening. I mean, they're not being genuine with what they say they're going to be doing. Yeah, that's what I have to say. Same thing's going on in Lansing. I've seen plans for a $120 million facility in Lansing. I've seen plans for $20, $30, $40 million facilities in Bay City. And obviously you've heard me talk about VB of Chesaning already being approved by the state. If you've been to Chesaning, it's a very small rural community. And same thing there. They're proposing a multi-million-dollar facility and are already having job postings being listed. So not that I'm anti-business, certainly not, and certainly not for medical marijuana or for recreational marijuana for that matter. But it is disheartening when you see people still being prosecuted at a personal level, when you see patients being treated as criminals, and yet you have these entrepreneurial enterprises coming in from out of state, throwing around multi-million-dollar contracts, and we have people who have previously thrown folks in jail for marijuana, ruined their lives over it, taken their property over it, turn right back around and roll out the red carpet for these multimillionaires. And to me, that is sick. Because it's the folks that were in your community before that you were treating like thugs because they chose an alternate medication source, one that maybe you weren't as educated on. And now because these guys roll in with some big backpacks full of greenbacks, you don't have a problem with it anymore. So poop on places like Marshall. I really hope that patients there get access. That's a good thing. But for the caregivers in the area and for the patients in the area that have been treated like criminals, you deserve a lot better. And maybe you'll start to get that now that the town anyways can sort of jump on the bandwagon. Now they're getting paid for it. So all right, John, were you able to get that video there by chance?
Yeah, I have. I was going to just ask if you want to try for it. So it'll take a second to load up, but it's right there. So
no problem at all.
All ready?
Give me just a second. I'll introduce it. Since it's a little bit off topic from politics and all the other news that we've been talking about, I did get a video of a hermaphroditic plant. So yes, we do talk about actual cannabis on this show sometimes. And man, I keep getting text. Sorry about here. Anyways, I got a video I want to share with you guys. Just 2 minutes. It is me identifying a hermaphrodite in my garden. And, with feminized seeds nowadays and really just, a lot of people are out there, they're strain hunting. They want to find that one that everybody's searching for, and more power to you. But with all of the breeding that's going on, and honestly, some of these breeders out there, they're putting on a good front. They've got a real fancy label, but they don't know what the frog they're doing. And it's going to become evident when you start popping their beans in your garden. So be careful. Hermaphrodites are getting to be more and more common because we're seeing more and more strains get crossbred, feminized, back crossed, so on and so forth. You're going to have to watch out for this. And the thing about it is that the hermaphrodism or ditism, or however you say that, it can show up at different stages of the flowering cycle. So it might take a couple weeks to become evident. It might take 5 weeks to become evident, or even longer in some cases, depending on the cycle of that plant. And it can really burn you. So this is a good way to identify it. Keeping close track on your plants is the only way to ensure that you can not have any errors. And when I say close eye, I mean like real close eye, because you can have parts of a plant where they will be hermaphroditic. They'll have male and the female sex right there. And then other parts of the plant will be 100% female. So it's something that you have to watch out for, especially if you're working with feminized seeds. So, John, if you want to roll that video for them, guys, check this out, and feel free to share it if you'd like. I think it's makes it easy to find what you're looking for. Okay, so I made a video on the previous podcast showing you the difference between the male and the females and how to identify them. And unfortunately for me, but fortunate for you, I have an example of a hermaphrodite, and I'm going to give you a picture of what that looks like. So when you're trying to identify these, you want to look approximately the same location as you would for, you know, identifying the gender anyways. Be up towards the top of the plant. And this plant has been in flower for about 2 weeks. Sometimes hermaphrodites take a little bit longer to develop, and I don't know if that's because they're developing both sexes. And that's in fact what a hermaphrodite is, possesses both male and female gender. And right here you can see on the top, as it focuses, there's your pistils, little white hairs, and then right below it are the male gender as well. And these are just about ready to open. You can see right there, right above my thumb, there's a little yellow flower. It hasn't started dropping pollen yet, and the heads above it are not open yet. Those would also drop pollen. Essentially though, that's what would rain down little yellow gold dust and pollinate a plant. And this plant here, if you let it continue to flower, it would end up having you know, seed-filled bud. It would also pollinate the rest of your females in the room and turn everything to seeded bud, which is not what you want. So this is unfortunately something that's real common nowadays with all the breeding that's going on. And these seeds here, they were not feminized. I had quite a few males come out of this batch, and fortunately only one hermaphrodite, and I was able to catch it before it actually started doing damage in my grow room. So, but they are tricky to catch because oftentimes the pistils will come out first, and then the male sacs will form, and that's exactly what this one did. And again, I said this has been in flower for about 2 weeks. So right there's a good example. You can see the hairs, and right here on the other side of the same stem, you can see the male sacs right below the bud. And there's my finger right there. So, anyways, bye-bye plant. We'll cut this one down too and get rid of it. I have no use for this at all. But at any rate, hopefully this helps you, and good luck growing. All right, so there you go. If you shoot if you're in pursuit of 100% chance familia, then you want to make sure you check out for the hermaphrodism. You know what I'm saying?
By the way, though, now, okay, on the legal stance of that, though, I mean, yeah. Okay, you had a plant like that, you removed it, okay, but maybe you didn't trash it or whatever. Would that count towards official count for like plants or whatever, or what? I mean, how would that stand? Just so you know, because they do split hairs. The law enforcement splits hairs. So.
And it is as simple as this, John. Is what I can tell you is that when you're looking at that plant, if a police officer walked in, looked at that plant, that's a plant. It's going to count. Now, the second that I went and took my shears and cut it from the base of it, cut it in half, essentially. Then now we get to argue, and that's God honest truth right now in court of, you know, what do we want to count? Is that usable? Is it not? That's something that you could end up very well arguing in front of a judge or in front of a jury and trying to decipher whether or not you're over your limit. Because, you know, like you pointed out there, if I cut it, it's no longer a plant, doesn't count as my plant count, right? So I could technically go grow another plant, of course. And then what does the remaining material there that I've now got in my hand that I've removed from the roots, what does that count for? And honestly, I mean, at that point, right at that point when you've just cut it, it shouldn't count for anything. I mean, it's worthless. Even if there was some material on there that could be made into medicine, there's a lot that would have to happen in the process in order to make that medicine, in order to be able to not just extract it, but actually procure it, make it usable. So, and oftentimes, like a hermaphrodite plant, as I explained there in the video, it's only been in flower for 2 weeks. Many times, the plant hasn't really produced very much resin at that point. There's not going to be a high cannabinoid content in the material, so it's really not all that medicinally practical to be used. So I would say it's not usable. I'd argue that 100% all day long, and I think that's legitimate. It's not usable at that point. But there are prosecutors out there who would be glad to argue it the other way and try to weigh the whole doggone thing and use that against you to say that you're over your 2.5 ounces as a patient. But, you know, this is the battle that we're in. You know, in the meantime, they approve, you know, multi-million-dollar facilities and don't even talk about what limits they're allowed to have. And on the other hand, they, you know, some of the prosecutors and law enforcement out there are trying to pick apart patients. And some of it, I think, comes from them not really understanding how patients get from A to B. You know, if you've got a person who is a cancer patient, they're utilizing Simpson oil, the amount of material that they could grow and then reduce down to what it is that they actually use is actually quite impressive. I mean, they could go through a lot of material and really end up with very little as far as what's usable to them. Whereas, you know, and you could have the opposite effect where somebody else who, you know, maybe occasionally smokes half a joint once a week, you know, because that's all they need, and they're growing 12 plants. I mean, obviously they're going to have different needs and different results, and could, you know, whether or not a person is going to end up being over their limit is sort of really up to the patient to decide how are they utilizing their medication, in what form is it going to be. And obviously, if their caregiver is helping them get to that point, then that's something that them and their caregiver have to decide and work together on. So it gets ugly, it gets gray, and the important thing, I think, like we've talked about before in the program, is doing your best to ensure that you can show you are trying to maintain compliance. You know, like if you've got an outdoor grow facility and you've got 2 different people growing there, there should be clear separation between those people's plants, and not just a colored tag, but like a chain and a lock separation between the 2. It's not that they can't both be there, but they can't be accessible to one another, put it that way. And same thing like when you have unusable material that's drying. It doesn't take long to make a small label and put on there, whether you're using tape or whatever, unusable, still drying or you know, in processing. If you've got trim that's frozen and you're storing it, if you've got, you know, you're going to make edibles down the road or something, it doesn't take long to just simply write on there, not usable. And does it seem silly? Is it a foolproof insurance plan? Yes, it's silly. No, it's not an insurance plan. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You're doing what you can to protect yourself. And ultimately, you know, yeah, you hope that you will be able to take advantage of the protections provided to you in the law, but there's no guarantee. So you have to do everything you can to try to protect yourself. And stuff like labeling, separating, making sure your stuff's cleaned up, you know, not having debris laying around, you know, having it look orderly, especially if you're a caregiver. These things are essential to showing that you're maintaining compliance. And there's just a few helpful tips I would give you to keep you out of hot water. You know, and a lot of these things they're difficult to decipher. And you know, just like we talked about at the beginning of the program, we talked about THC crystals today. You know, is a law enforcement official going to know the difference between a THCA crystal and terp sauce and shatter and wax and booter? Probably not. And so again, it's important that you protect yourself as a patient or as a caregiver and not set yourself up for a fall or for disaster. You know, like riding around in the car with having your medicine be accessible. It's a no-no. Don't do it. So, all right. That's what I got for you on the program this week. I hope that was useful. Feel free to share the Hermy video. Just don't share Hermes. Plants, that is. And John, thanks for being with me in the studio this week. I definitely appreciate it. Again, just as a friendly reminder, please stop out on Friday. It's going to be some delicious barbecue we're going to be having. And sign up for some golf, all right? August 27th, it's going to be a blast out at Copper Ridge. And looking forward to seeing you guys there. Have a great week. Enjoy your summer. It's going to be gone soon. And I'll catch you here next week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Come on down to the club too, all right? See ya.